All right, let's talk about how these translations work. So the first number one thing I want to ask when I'm looking at an equation is, will the graph open up or down? When you get in other classes, you'll also have to ask, will it open left or right? And what I mean is, so if we have y equals x squared, we know it's some kind of sort of horseshoe shape. That's not very good, but sort of like this, okay? And this point right here, the very top or the very bottom, is called the vertex. And it's a point. Every point has an x coordinate and a y coordinate, okay? So it could open up or it could open down, okay? If it's opening up, the vertex is the most bottom point. If it's opening down, the vertex is the most top point, okay? So the way we do that is we look at the equation. And I'm just going to write something here, an equation, okay? And we want to know, is the sign in front of this negative or positive? So if the sign is positive, okay, then our graph will open up. So like this guy, okay? If, on the other hand, our equation, okay, and I'm just making up equations, so it doesn't matter, just something, and we'll learn about these later. If the sign in front is negative, then my graph opens down, like this guy, okay? So that's my first question. Does my graph open up or down? It has only to do with the sign in the very front of our equation. Once I've done that, then I can ignore that sign, okay? I've figured out it's going to open up or down. Don't need anything more with that sign, okay? So then the second thing we need to figure out is, what is the vertex? In other words, our starting point. Okay? So again, if I have, say, this, that's a squared, if you couldn't tell. I couldn't. Okay, so here's the thing, okay? Our x coordinate is always something that is with the x inside parentheses. That's our x coordinate. But always change the sign. So in this case, our x coordinate of our vertex is going to be -3, okay? Then our y coordinate is always outside of the x, okay? So whatever's outside of whatever's going on with the x, and we keep the sign. Oops. So in this case, our y coordinate is -2, okay? So now on a graph, if I were doing a graph, I would go to the left 3 and down 2, and that's where I would start. That would be my vertex. And in this case, it would be opening up. So I know it's going to go something like this. Okay? Let's just do one more with this, and we'll see lots more in the examples I'm going to give you. But let's say that this is the equation I have. So I look at this and I say, well, my x coordinate is going to be 3 because I changed the sign, and my y coordinate is going to be positive 2. So in this case, I would go to the right 3 and up 2, and that would be, but look, this is opening downward. Now I haven't figured out any points yet other than that, okay? And remember, you need to understand how these translations work, and you're going to just figure out the things you need to, and then you'll be able to know exactly where the points are and not do a table. So we will not be doing tables anymore. Okay? So that's our second question. First question is, does it open up or down? Second question is, what's our vertex? Okay? And then our third question is going to be, is our graph the same shape as the parent? That's why we need to know the parent graph so well. Or is the shape narrower, sometimes known as stretched, or is the shape, then the parent graph each time, the shape wider, sometimes known as compressed. And we'll learn what that is when we do the examples. So the way we know that is when we look, y equals, or f of x equals, remember this could be f of x or g of x or whatever. Just get used to this notation. We're going to learn about that later in the next unit, but this notation, function notation, could be f of x equals and then the equation. But f of x just really means y for right now. Okay, so here's the thing. If we have a whole number in front, then it means that our graph, the shape of our graph, is going to be narrower or stretched. In other words, when I graph, so this would be -3, -2, and it's going to open up. So instead of going like this, ours would go like this. And we'll talk about why and how. It's when we do this, every time we figure out what our point is, we will multiply our y coordinate by, in this case, 3. So by whatever this whole number is, okay? Or if we had, let's say, this, y equals, sometimes these just don't come out very nicely. Okay, so if we have a fraction in front, then our shape of our graph is going to be wider. So in this case, and let's see, we'd be +3 and +2, and I know it's going down. And instead of doing the regular parent graph, this one now is going to go more like this. And again, we will see how that works when I actually do some examples for you, okay? So again, let's go through real quick what the rules are. First thing you want to figure out is opens, if I could only spell this morning, opens up or down. That's only, all we need to worry about is what is the sign in front. Second thing we need to figure out, what is the vertex? In other words, where do we start? And then the third thing is the shape compared to the parent graph. Narrower or stretched is a whole number. In front, and we would multiply the y coordinate by that whole number. In this case, what we have here is 3, and I forgot to mention, or wider, also sometimes known as compressed, and it's got a fraction in front, and we would divide the y coordinate by whatever the denominator is, as long as there's only a 1 in the numerator, and that's all we'll be working with. So we divide the y coordinate by whatever the denominator is. Okay? So make note of this so that you can be looking at these steps when I'm doing the examples in the next video.